Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, the Dodgers lost to the Brewers 5-3. They split the series. They still have a winning road trip, but probably their least successful trip in a while. Andrew Heaney had his first clunker of the season. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Cody Bellinger's unsuccessful so far return from his reset, and overall just the offense's inability to get anything going against Corbin Burns. We're going to talk about the Dodgers bullpen, and we're going to talk about Austin Barnes' importance to the team. So let's get Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Dodger fans. This is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Or even better, go ahead and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now, and then you'll never miss a day, because you know we're not going to. If this is your first time watching or listening, my name is Jeff Snider. My co-host is Vince Samperio, but it's just me today. Vince was solo yesterday. I'm solo today to wrap up the week. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like you are. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room. So we're not quite insiders, but we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. So, as I mentioned at the top, the Dodgers unfortunately lost to the Brewers to split the series, 4-game series. It went 1-1-1-1. So the Dodgers have now lost 3 out of their last 5 games. If you go back to the last game in Kansas City, probably the worst 5-game streak the Dodgers have had in a long time, which is saying something. They're down to only being on pace for just over 112 wins this year. Although I did notice they have 45 games left. If they were to go 22-23, so just under 500, they would finish the season with 103 wins. Pretty good situation to be in. I still like their chances in the division. We had our first clunker from Andrew Heaney, and in a way, it's really more surprising that it took this long. Andrew Heaney, I really do think Heaney has become a better pitcher. His new breaking ball that he discovered, I think it really did transform him. And so I don't expect him to turn back into the guy who had a 5.83 ERA last year. But one thing that had been really an anomaly this year with Heaney was he wasn't allowing home runs. He had only allowed 1 home run in 31 innings so far this year before Thursday's game. I'm recording this Thursday afternoon. And so if I say today, that's why. But he had only allowed 1 home run in 31 innings. For comparison, last year, he threw 35 2/3 innings after being traded to the Yankees. And so just 4 2/3 more innings than he had coming into today. So actually, the exact same number of innings as he's now thrown this year, because he threw 4 2/3 today. But in those 35 2/3 innings with the Yankees last year, he allowed 13 home runs. So with the 3 today, he's now up to 4. So he's still doing a lot better. 4 in the same number of innings as he had. Overall, last year, he allowed 29 home runs. In 2020, the shortened season, he allowed 9 home runs. In 2019-20, 2018, 27 homers. So he's always been a homer-prone guy. And I mean, in 2019, those 20 home runs came in just 95 innings. And so, yeah, he's always been a guy who allows a lot of home runs. His home run per 9 throughout his career is usually, between 1.5 and 2 home runs per 9 innings. This year, coming into today, it was 0.3. He's now allowed 4 home runs in 35-ish innings. So it's about, about 1. His home runs per 9 is just over 1. So it's still well below his career average. I don't necessarily, I do think that the new breaking ball will help him limit the home runs, but I don't think it was realistic for us to think that he had totally changed to never give up home runs anymore. And so I think this game on Thursday was just one of those clunkers that was bound to happen. The home runs bunched together, a little bit of bad luck mixed in. The last 2 runs on the Hunter Renfroe home run were both unearned because McCutchen struck out, got on the pass ball. That would have been the 3rd out. And so, and McCutchen's 2 home runs really, Heaney only threw a couple bad pitches today. He just left a couple balls over the plate and gave up those home runs. The Brewers did a really good job of capitalizing on his mistakes. They really didn't hit him much besides that. Of the 14 outs he got, 10 of them were strikeouts. He was really, really good other than leaving a few pitches right over the plate and getting hammered on them. And so that's kind of what we're going to get from Andrew Heaney. And I think this is maybe a more realistic, the 2 runs that are unearned. If you figure, if he could give up 3 runs in 6 innings, I think he's going to win most of the time that way. And I think that is, that would be just fine for the Dodgers from him, and occasionally have a little bit better start, occasionally 6 innings and 1 run or 2 runs, or maybe even get 7 innings in. But Heaney is, I think what we saw on Thursday isn't who he is. I don't think he's going to give up 3 home runs in a game very often. But I also don't think the guy who had a 1.16 ERA in his first 7 games was who he is. I definitely don't think the guy who had a 0.64 ERA in his first 6 games is who he is. And so what we've seen now is in his last 2 games, he's allowed 5 earned runs in 8 2/3 innings. He's better than that, but we're going to have starts like this once in a while from him. And I still think Andrew Heaney can be a very valuable part of this rotation. It does underscore why, even though for as good as he's been, when you look at the Dodgers, you only need 4 starters in the postseason. You have Dustin May coming back. You have Clayton Kershaw coming back. It kind of underscores why Andrew Heaney is one of the guys who a lot of people think, okay, he's probably an odd man out in that rotation, even though until today he had the best the best ERA. I guess he still does. His ERA is only up to 1.77, so he still has the best ERA of anybody who's been starting for the Dodgers. But I don't know that anybody is totally comfortable with that being who he is. I think he is probably legitimately a 2.8 to 3.0 kind of ERA guy right now. And that's very good and very valuable. May not be starting pitching in the postseason for a team that plans on winning the World Series kind of quality, if that makes sense. So, it's hard to be too upset about this loss to the Brewers, because overall, and the Dodgers are going up against Corbin Burnes, who's very, very good, won the Cy Young Award last year, actually had a better ERA this year coming into this game than he did last year. He doesn't anymore because the Dodgers scored 3 runs in a little less than 6 innings on him, bumped up his ERA a little bit. But he's been very good for a few years now. And so everybody's going to struggle to score against Corbin Burnes. And when Heaney had his clunker, it's like, okay, it's one of those games that happen. There are some losses that make you angry or make you frustrated as a fan. I try not to get too high or low about any game in the regular season. But the other loss in this series with Kimbrel's blown save, that one was a frustrating one for a lot of reasons. This one, it's pretty easy to let this one roll off your back and say, okay, well, we'll get him next time. Because that's just what happens. It very easily could have been scoring 3 runs off Corbin Burnes. Sometimes that gets you a win. So no huge complaints there. I'm going to come back in a minute. I'm going to talk about the Dodgers bullpen because they got some good relief work again today from some guys who are not necessarily the high leverage guys that we would expect the good work from. So I'm going to be back in a minute to talk about that. So thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. Hey, did you know that the key to sustainable weight loss is through your liver? The liver is the body's metabolic furnace. It's responsible for flushing out harmful toxins and igniting your fat-burning metabolism. But thanks to modern diets rich in unhealthy processed foods and constant exposure to thousands of man-made and environmental toxins, most of us have overworked livers. But now it's easy to rejuvenate your liver health and reignite your metabolism, thanks to Liver Health Formula by Pure Health Research. Liver Health Formula contains 8 liver-boosting super nutrients like turmeric, beet, and artichoke extract, all of which work together to wake up a sluggish liver and turn it into a toxin-flushing and fat-burning machine. No more bloated belly, no more uncomfortable digestion, and no more feeling tired and low on energy all the time. And best of all, Liver Health Formula makes it easier to maintain a healthy body weight long term. As a listener of our show, you can try Liver Health Formula risk-free today and get a free bottle of Curb Fit with your order. Curb Fit is a safe and all-natural appetite suppressant, making it easy to say no to naughty foods. This makes it the perfect complement to Liver Health Formula. Go to getliverhelp.com/MLB to learn more. Again, that's getliverhelp.com/MLB to try Liver Health Formula completely risk-free and claim your free bottle of Curb Fit with your order. Go to getliverhelp.com/MLB now to get started. Okay, I am back. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day. I want to talk a little bit about some of the relief pitching that we've seen. You know, we've talked about the big names. Obviously, Evan Phillips has become a favorite of mine, a guy I really, really like, really trust, and I expect him to do really good things. Caleb Ferguson, Vince talked about him on yesterday's episode. He finally allowed his first run of the season. Obviously, we talked about Craig Kimbrell plenty. Yancy Almonte is currently injured, but he's been outstanding. We're expecting big things from Blake Treinen when he comes back. Brusdar Graterol is coming back this weekend. He should be today, Thursday. He should be pitching again for Oklahoma City. He pitched on Wednesday night, should pitch again on Thursday night before you're even listening to this. And if all goes well after that, he will head to Los Angeles and be activated maybe as soon as Saturday. He has been really, really good his last couple months. So there's a lot of good stuff about the bullpen. So, and we've also talked about David Price. David Price pitched again today on Thursday and pitched an inning, perfect inning, 1 inning, 3 batters faced, and just I can't find the pitches right now. 10 pitches, 10-pitch inning. He's been outstanding. And I'm not going to harp too much on David Price, but he has been, whatever it is, I know that he had his fastball ticked up, got a little bit faster at some point this season. I assume the added success is somewhat related to that. Whatever it is, though, I mean, David Price is turning into a dude in the bullpen. And that's something that probably caught a lot of us by surprise. We thought his best days were behind him. That's been really good to see. The other 3 guys who pitched in this game in relief were Reyes Morata, Phil Bickford, and Alex Vessia. And I want to talk about each of those guys. Reyes Morata, look, he's still not great this year. His ERA is now down to 4.18. But, I mean, it was 4.79 just a couple starts ago. And it was 4.96 on after his July 23rd. You remember he had 4 straight appearances in which he allowed home runs. And then he went down to the minors for a little while, came back up, gave up 2 runs in 2/3 of an inning. And then after that was on July 23rd. After that, he had 1 more appearance with 2 walks, but 3 strikeouts in 1 inning, then got sent back to the minors for a while and then came back up. He allowed a couple runs against the Royals in some meaningless runs on August 12th. Other than that, now with Thursday's appearance, he has now been scoreless in 6 of his last 7 appearances. Like I said, dropping his ERA from 4.96 down to where it currently is at 4.18. Reyes Morata is not a guy I want, pitching high leverage in October, but there's a lot of value in a guy who can come in a game like this where the Dodgers were down. They really didn't have 3 of their best relievers available even. You had Craig Kimbrell pitched the last 2 nights. He wasn't available. Evan Phillips had pitched 3 of the last 4, I think. Caleb Ferguson had pitched 2 of the 3 games in this series. And so they wanted to stay away from all those guys. And especially when you're trailing, you can't throw out your best relievers in every game. And to have those guys come in and keep them safe. Morata came in and got a huge out to get out of the inning after Heaney gave up the home run to Renfroe in the 5th. Morata came in and got that last out. David Price pitched the 6th, perfect inning. Phil Bickford came in and pitched the 7th and got the first out of the 8th. He allowed just 1 hit, had 2 strikeouts. Bickford, in his last 13 games now, has allowed just 3 runs. He had back-to-back games where he allowed runs earlier this year. they were both meaningless games. One of them was that 8-1 game against the Padres where the one run scored in the 9th inning. Bickford walked Josh Bell, which you never want to do a leadoff walk, but then Bell went to second on a defensive indifference, and that's the only reason he scored. So, the run happened, the walk happened, but it's not a killer. The other one, Bickford gave up a 2-run homer against the Twins in a game that the Dodgers won 10-3. That's the only runs that Bickford's allowed in his last 13 appearances, spanning exactly 13 innings. 3 runs in 13 innings, that's very good. His ERA in that time has dropped from 5.93 down to 4.78. 4.78 is still not a great ERA, but he's been really, really good these last few weeks. That goes back to July 24th. So we're 3.5 weeks now that he's been very good. And then you had Alex Vessia came in, got the last 2 outs of the 8th inning, the last inning the Dodgers had to pitch today. Vessia, now in his last 11 appearances, has thrown 9 2/3 innings and allowed 0 runs. His ERA has dropped from 3.68 at that after July 21st down to 2.77. Vessia is starting to turn back into the dude who we saw last year. We were worried, him and Bickford both this year. We thought, well, maybe they were one-hit wonders last year. Vessia had the 2.25 ERA last year, was really, really good after he came back for the minors. If you remember last year, he was struggling, went down to the minors, struck everybody out in the minors, and came back with a totally different attitude, giving up fewer walks and fewer home runs after he came back. And he's kind of back to being that guy again. His numbers this year are pretty darn similar to his numbers last year. He's actually allowed fewer home runs this year, walking fewer guys, striking out a little bit less. The Alex Vessia we've seen the last few weeks, again, has been really, really good. He's a guy who actually might play himself into some sort of leverage innings in October, depending on what the bullpen looks like. But, overall, it's still unlikely to me that Reyes Morata makes the postseason roster just because they're going to have some other relievers back, and you're not necessarily, no matter how good he's been, he's probably not quite going to crack that roster. Phil Bickford might. Alex Vessia definitely will. And to have those guys available in a game like this where you needed to keep the game close, give your offense a chance, but you couldn't use your high leverage guys, they did a great job, a really, really good job. It was really impressive. And we've seen more often than not this year, the Dodgers bullpen has really gotten the job done regardless of who's pitching. And that's something that isn't always the case. And it's been really nice that it is the case this time. So I'm going to come back in a little bit. I'm going to talk about Cody Bellinger's return from his reset, and I'm going to talk about Austin Barnes' importance to the team. So thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. Hey, BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, the NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information. From live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts, they have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, I want to thank you one more time for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day. It means a lot to us, and we appreciate talking with you. This is our last episode of the week. It's been a fun week talking with you, a dramatic week. We had some big numbers on the episode from Wednesday talking about Craig Kimbrell's blown save. A lot of you seemed interested in that. If you found us because of that episode, hope you're back, and hope we're not always going to have something quite as controversial to talk about as Craig Kimbrell, but we'll do the best we can. Last couple topics today. Cody Bellinger had that 2-game reset. He had 2 games off. Dave Roberts had said originally it might be 3 games, so it might have been this whole rest of this series. After this game, I'm sure Bellinger might be wishing that it was. Bellinger went 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts, which probably isn't what Dave Roberts had in mind for his return from the reset. You got to take that with a grain of salt. Corbin Burns started the game. Corbin Burns is outstanding. Devin Williams, Bellinger's last strikeout was against Devin Williams, who is one of the best relief pitchers in baseball. Speaking of BetOnline, like I was during the ads, if I was a betting man and if I hadn't been driving my car at the time, I probably would have been tempted to put money on the Dodgers having 1-2-3 inning in the top of the ninth with 3 strikeouts, because Devin Williams going up against Joey Gallo, Chris Taylor, and Cody Bellinger. I actually said out loud to my son, I was driving him to baseball practice at the time, I said, this is like a strikeout the side waiting to happen. And it was, unfortunately. That's how the game ended. The Dodgers were unable to put up a fight against Devin Williams. Not a lot of shame in that. Devin Williams has been outstanding. The key to beating Devin Williams is to get a lead early so that he doesn't get into the game. And they didn't do that, and that's okay. But, it is what it is. Cody Bellinger, though, coming back, and I mentioned he might have wished that he could wait another day. Problem is, today, Friday, they go up against the Marlins and they're facing Jesus Luzardo, who is very good and left-handed. So it's not like things are going to get easier for Bellinger there. Later this weekend, they have Sandy Alcantara. In between, they have Braxton Garrett, who is also really good, a good young pitcher. So, Cody's going to have to hit good pitching at some point. And I don't think anybody expected this reset to immediately pay dividends. I don't think the fact that Cody went 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts means this didn't work. I don't think if he had gone 4 for 4, I don't even think it would have meant that it did work. Cody has had streaks before. What we're looking for is to get that consistency back and to just get out of his head. There was an interesting article on The Athletic with Bellinger talking about his struggles and how he gets in his head. If he's struggling, he goes up there and he's just so focused on breaking out of his slump that, he gets too tense or whatever. If things are going well, he goes up there and tries to do too much, and it kind of reminded me of, I don't know how familiar you are with the movie Tommy Boy. It's only the greatest movie ever made, one of the greatest movies ever made. And there's a scene where Tommy and Richard are sitting at a diner. It's right after Richard hit Tommy across the face with a 2x4. And the scene starts with Tommy asking if there's a mark on his face. It's funny. Anyway, the waitress comes up and he says, "Hey, we're both in sales. Let me tell you why I suck as a salesman." And then he grabs a roll and he says, "This roll is my sale." And when he's getting close and he loves it and then he just, and he rips up the roll and he says, "And I kill my sale." And that's kind of like I picture Cody Bellinger. Let me tell you why I suck at getting on a consistent hot streak, because it seems like he's just in his head too much. And he admitted as much. I don't know what the answer is, and a lot of people, I see a lot of people talking about the physical mechanics of his swing. Jerry Hairston was saying it on the postgame show a day or two ago, that Cody just needs to get back to the stance and the swing that he had last year in the postseason, when he was really good. And I see people saying he needs to get back to the stance that he used in 2019 when he won the MVP award. The problem with that is he used like 4 different stances just in 2019. I don't know how much of it is mechanical and how much of it is mental. And I don't know why Cody does tinker with his stance so much. That's not always a bad thing. Cal Ripken is a Hall of Famer, and you'd be hard pressed to find 2 highlight videos of Ripken using the same stance. Like, dude went through 18 stances a year. And so it can work sometimes, but if you look at Freddie Freeman has been the same hitter his whole career. Like, you look at his stance and everything, and he's gotten better. He's made adjustments, but he's also been very, very similar stance-wise, mechanics-wise. It's just, he has gotten a better eye, better control of the strike zone, all those things, better at putting the ball where he wants to, but the mechanics have stayed pretty similar, pretty consistent. I don't know if that's for everybody, but I wonder, Cody Bellinger still provides a lot of value with his defense. He had another catch in this game on Thursday, really good catch. He had another one that he almost caught, a double by Renfroe late in the game that Bellinger couldn't quite get to. But his defense has been really good. But it's crazy that a guy who hit 39 home runs as a rookie, 47 home runs 2 years later, and he's only in the lineup because of his defense. That's crazy. I don't know what the answer is. I would love it if he would just, if he'd figure it out. And I really believe the skill and the talent is still there, but I don't know what it's going to take for him to actually figure it out. Obviously, the reset didn't do a magic trick and get it figured out immediately, but maybe there's still maybe he was able to identify some things he wants to work on or whatever. We'll have to see what happens with Bellinger, but it sure would be nice if he could get on a hot streak here, near the end of the season, going into October. Last year, he wasn't good during the regular season at all, and yet he was really good and really valuable in the postseason. 2020, kind of the same. He was better in the postseason than he was in the regular season. So I don't know what the answer is with Bellinger, but I hope he figures it out. I really like Cody Bellinger, and I want him to succeed, and I hope he can get out of his head. Last thing I want to talk about is Austin Barnes, just the importance to the team that he has. Some of the things that people talk about with Barnes. Barnes was away from the team for a few days due to a family emergency or family situation. We don't really know what it was. Barnes hasn't said, as far as I know, at least not publicly. And it's none of our business if he doesn't want it to be public. But then he came back on Wednesday. He was the only Dodger to have 2 hits. He had a home run to get the scoring started for the Dodgers. It was a big deal. He dedicated that home run to David Vessier. I don't know if Vince got a chance to talk about Vessier. It was pretty funny. If you haven't seen, I love John Boy's tweet of the Vessier segment from the broadcast, the way it ends, where it ends with Vessier raising his cast and saying, "Hi, guys." Really, really funny. I've watched that a lot of times today. But Barnes, somebody asked Dave Roberts about Barnes after that game, Barnes hadn't played in 12 days, and he comes off the bench, gets 2 hits, does a really good job behind the plate. And Dave said it was very impressive. Just to get Austin back with our ball club, just lifted the spirits for everyone. What he did behind the plate tonight with Tony was special. What he did, the fingers, the receiving, everything was great. The bat getting us on board with the homer was huge, and he threw out another knock. It's tough to do. It's been 12 days. My plan is to not make it 12 days this next time. And yeah, Austin Barnes is not hitting well this year. I think his batting average is up to 183 after that 2-hit game. He's not a good hitter, but he is very popular with his teammates. He seems to be a really good team leader and a really important part of that clubhouse. And every team needs a backup catcher. We saw when Barnes was gone, the alternative was Tony Walters. I saw on Twitter last year when Walters was playing for the Cubs, he had back-to-back games that Dodgers relief pitchers walked him. And I said, apparently on this podcast, I said, Tony Walters' main defining characteristic as a baseball player is being a bad hitter. And that's what we saw with the Dodgers in his couple days. We'll see if he even stays in the organization. They had to DFA him to get him off the roster. So we'll see if he sticks around. But every team needs a backup catcher. And to have a guy like Barnes who is that important to the clubhouse, it's a big deal, I think, and people talk about intangibles and leadership and all that. And I think it's overblown sometimes. I think team chemistry often is the result of success, not the cause of success. And I think people get that mixed up. But I do think there is value in a team leader like Austin Barnes being what he is. It means a lot to his teammates. And I think it means a lot to us as fans. There's a reason that the Dodgers players wear that Barnes jersey with the C on the chest. He's not officially the captain, but they view him as the captain of the team. And on a team with guys like Justin Turner and Clayton Kershaw, there's a lot of veteran leadership on this team. Austin Barnes, though, whatever it is, he is important to this team. And I think that's important for us as fans to remember that his contributions on the field, the dude's not going to hit much. It was a bonus when he got those 2 hits and home run against the Brewers the other night. He's not going to do that very often. He's not much of a hitter. He is good at a lot of parts of catching. He's not going to throw out anybody stealing, but he does a solid job behind the plate. But what he means to the clubhouse, I think, is really important and probably can't be overstated. So I just want to give Austin Barnes his props. I'm glad that he's back with the team. Hope that whatever the situation was with the family, hope it was resolved okay and that everything's okay. But either way, we're glad to have him back with the Dodgers. And I think that's going to do it for me to do today and do it for us this week. We really appreciate you making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, check out the Locked On MLB podcast. MLB expert Paul Francis Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully, brings humor, passion, and unique perspective on every team and the biggest stories around the league. Follow the #1 daily league-wide podcast, Locked On MLB, on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. If you're not watching or listening to Locked On Dodgers every day, we'd love if you add 1 or 2 days a month to your rotation. If you have friends and family who care about the Dodgers as much as you do, please tell them about the show. Maybe they'll like it. You can follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at Vince Samperio. I'm on Twitter at Snidog, and the DMs are open in all of those places. Our email address is lockedondodgers@gmail.com, and our phone number for voicemails or texts is 323-863-LOCK, 5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree, you just have to listen. We'll talk to you on Monday.